I think it just cuts to the very nub of who we are. I think it's taken a long time to get to this point, but our mental well-being and our physical well-being, beyond those two things, there is nothing else. If you're in a position of leadership at work and you're leading people, they need to be fundamentally happy people, which money does not buy happiness. Promotion doesn't buy happiness, but their well-being, that's always got to be your base camp.
Hello and welcome to Run the Business, the podcast that explores the place where running and leadership come together. We'll find out how running can help us with leading, connecting with people, and generally being better in business. We also try and answer that question, do runners make better leaders? I'm Anthony Gay, and today I'm joined by a man with a background in business, management, and sports science that led him to create LGN WellBeing, a specialist well-being company that provides businesses like Unilever, BP, Omnicom Media, Pernod Ricard, and many others with in-house run club training. His own running life is not to be sniffed at as well. We'll talk more about that in the conversation. But he's also the race director and the man behind the Night of the 10,000 meter PBs, which has been described as the Glastonbury of 10Ks. Ben Pochee, welcome to Run the Business. Ben, how are you today?
I'm great, and thank you so much for having me on, and I'm very flattered to be asked, so thank you.
And it's a busy time for you, I appreciate, with the event coming up fairly soon. Tell us, first of all, where you are in the world, and when did you last go running, Ben?
I am in a town in Cornwall called Hale, which is about 3 to 4 miles away from St Ives. That's where we live. And the last time I ran was on Friday morning with my dog, Dennis, over kind of sandy dunes that we call Towns in Cornwall.
Ben, to start with, can we talk about the thing that I think is taking up most of your time right now, the Night of the 10,000 meter PBs? For anybody who isn't familiar with it, who doesn't know what it is, can you tell us about it and describe it?
Well, thanks. Yeah. Well, anyone listening, it's May the 20th, London, Hampstead Heath. Please come along. So Night of the 10,000 meter PBs is an event that was started in 2013 by myself and club mates at our club in North London called Highgate Harriers. And the idea I had was that we had Mo Farah had just won the London Olympics, but there were very few racing opportunities for British athletes who were aspiring to be the next Mo. So very, very good club athletes who essentially are looking for Olympic or World Championship qualifying times, or the level below those guys, and they're aspiring to be the guys who are close enough to trying to get onto that world stage. So prior to this, athletes would have to fund themselves over to America and do, there's a few 10,000 meter races over there that are really high quality. And so they would fly over to America and they would try and run the qualifying times. And we decided that let's try and do something like that in the UK. And so that British athletes had an opportunity to progress and learn the sport and, move their way up and hopefully follow, Mo Farah and his gold medal 10,000 meter winning ways in the London Olympics. The event started in 2013. Yeah, it became the British Championships in 2014. And if you like, the two clear kind of goals that have grown over the time in terms of delivery have been, number one, trying to help British athletes run faster. So that's kind of, if one metric we try and measure ourselves against. And then the other one I always had was trying to create atmosphere that would help elicit a excellent performance. And so by creating the atmosphere, this is one side of the event that has really grown, is trying to find unique ways that we can engage the event with people. So that means having spectators and crowds standing in lane 3 of the track. So really close to the athletes to create that atmosphere, creating a party kind of vibe, circus entertainers. We get the athletes have to run through 30, 40. This year we've got a 60 meter marquee, which is where we sell the beer. So we call it our lactic tunnels of love. And they are decked out with hundreds and hundreds of spectators who are gathering, having a community moment of all get together amongst kind of running friends in their community while watching and cheering some of the best athletes on the planet try and run 10,000 meters as quick as they can. And that simple kind of goal of, helping athletes run quicker and doing so via atmosphere has kind of been the growth over 10 years. So if you were to come to the event on May the 20th this year, it would look a whole lot different to where we were, back in 2013, 2014. But those key kind of values have stayed the same. And that's kind of how we've built the event. And now we're attracting athletes from, East Africa, from Japan, from all over the world, essentially, to an event that is hosted by volunteers from a community-based club, on a track that ordinarily is a completely basic council-run track. And yet, we make the difference the day before. We do a great build. We build bridges over the track so spectators can watch from the infield. And we try and ultimately celebrate our sport and bring everyone together to celebrate. Running in this country is an amazing volunteer-driven community enterprise. And I think I like to think the event in some ways goes a long way to kind of celebrating the people behind making that sport happen.
It's a fantastic event, and anybody listening to this, I mean, you've described it exceptionally well, by the way, but if anybody wants to get a flavor of it, I'll put a video, a link in the notes to the show so you can kind of get, I know there's some stuff around on YouTube so people can get a flavor of that sizzle, that showbiz that you describe. And I kind of want to pick up on that second point around the energy. And I know you've talked about the energy in running, in the running community being there, and your job being to activate that energy, to tap into that energy. How did you do that? I mean, it's taken you a few years to get to the point that it is now, but what did you see as the ways to tap into that energy that surrounds running and help people perform better?
I'd like to say it was a great plan. I mean, I think that would be overselling myself, really. I think a lot of it was organic, but I mean, it's from some basic insights. I knew my own performances when I was a club runner. I was always massively heightened when we used to do things called the club relays. The 12 stage and the 6 stage are iconic grassroots club relays. And I always used to perform a lot better when I attended these relays because you had your teammates around you and there was a kind of slightly more looser vibe in terms of people would run around to different parts of the course to cheer you on. And that energy would always transfer to my performance. I always ran better at the relay. So I was immediately thinking how we could use that. I've also spent some time racing on bikes, and I used to go to Belgium to do what they call Kermesse bike racing over there. And again, the whole town stops and the whole town becomes part of the event in Belgium. And so it was also looking at the energy that those events have and kind of what goes to making it. And, there's some simple stuff. It's food, it's booze, it's good access, and it's open access. So it's non-ticketed. It's a big open invitation where the community are basically saying, please come be part of this and celebrate with us.
So where did, just switching into to talk about your business as well now, LGN WellBeing, and that's a specialist wellbeing company that is into in-house run club training. How did you sort of see the opportunity to take your experience in running and your knowledge, and again, it's that energy, isn't it, of bringing people together. How did LGN come about, and where does that fit in your story?
Well, LGN pays the bills. So it fits quite neatly. Obviously, Night of the 10,000 is a completely volunteer derived enterprise, and LGN WellBeing started. I used to work in advertising for 12, 13 years, and I decided to get out, but my background was obviously running. I had a degree in sports science, and kind of you could see that there was a clear need for running was starting to boom back in this was around the 2000 point. And so it seemed like a real good opportunity to leverage if you like, my expertise and what I had academically and try and provide it in an environment where people were keen to learn and do more. And my advertising agency at the time worked closely with some big charity 5K runs, and you could see that the people who were working the account didn't really understand too much about running, and there was a nice way to build some empathy, which was quite simply to get people running from the agency. So we started that. We created our own in-house run club led by me. And by then I decided that the time was right to step away from the advertising industry and see whether there was scope for me to open up and expand this service to originally just to other advertising agencies, which we did. And then we got into other businesses. But yeah, essentially providing a trusted source of expertise in an area that there weren't a lot of people who really knew, how to deliver running to people who weren't actually already part of a running club setup or culture. And so, yeah, it was, we neatly found a way to kind of work alongside companies' well-being policies. And I think we're cost effective enough and we're flexible enough that we provide a really nice way that companies can provide, in their culture, thriving way that a coach can come in and offer ongoing advice. We provide a service that's 24/7 in terms of coach support via email, as well as the physical sessions. And then we kind of put a goal on the end of it where we started to create corporate running, kind of intercompany running events, simple 5K runs, which we would host in kind of the Royal Parks in London and create a bit of competition between companies. And it's just real simple stuff, really. But sometimes simple is a really nice way just to get action, be it getting sign off from budget or be it, getting people to lace up their shoes and get them out running and get them out at lunchtime or evening and, really be energized by the physicality of running.
And this podcast is all about how running might help people in business or in leadership, become better. And what tangible sort of outcomes have you seen from that work that you've done with the brands, the companies that you've worked with?
Well, yeah, one of the really nice positives that I hadn't really encountered in my kind of when I was thinking about it is how it brings people together from large companies who perhaps wouldn't share that amount of time together normally. So from different departments, we did it originally where there was a large agency that had a large merger. And part of the HR team's drive was to get the two cultures to merge in different ways. And historically, in advertising, obviously the way they would normally do that would just be a big boozy evening together, which definitely can work for some people, but it definitely doesn't work for everybody. And, increasingly now health is, it's seen quite rightly as a more important factor. And so, trying to find other ways other than just the lure of free booze to get people together and interact. And I think when people who do run will know that once those endorphins start flowing, people are able to interact with each other in a slightly different way. I just think it breaks down barriers. I think your energy level and your ability to express yourself are all amplified. And then, I just know from my own experience that running for several years when I was in quite a stressful environment was one of the few ways that I could actually remove that stress was by having constructive fatigue. Not too much, but if you've got a nice physical glow of fatigue about you, I used to find it went a long way to trying to removing some of those internal stresses I'd built up. So I think that was always one of the two key factors we used to work on was building a culture and communities together, increasing conversation, and just the pure physicality of well-being, really, be it, your headspace and your body space in terms of those improvements.
You mentioned your own running experience and you were, I mentioned it in the intro, not to be sniffed at, you were a successful runner with Highgate Harriers, weren't you? You for many years were part of that and I guess still are part of that club. You mentioned the cycling. Can you give us a bit of context as to kind of how serious it was in your life for that period?
So yeah, I was a member of Highgate Harriers from 1984 and I just enjoyed it. It was my little, it was my community, it was my gang. And so we'd compete at young athlete level and it was great. And then I got a bit better and a bit better. And as you keep improving, you always think anything's impossible. And that's one of the gimmies of being a young person. You have all that hope, which is great. And so, I ran for England as a 18, 19-year-old. And I won medals nationally on the track. I used to do the steeplechase, that brutal event running over big barriers, and then the water jump. And I had some national success, and I went to Loughborough University on the UK equivalent of a scholarship. Basically, they let me get in with slightly worse A-level grades. Well, I had my A-level grades actually ended up being all right. But yes, I was lured to Loughborough because I was running for England at the time. Yeah, and in the scheme of things, I didn't go much beyond that. So I didn't really. I had a whole bag of kind of injuries, which came while I was at university. And so I came back from those injuries, and I always ran at club level. So yeah, at the end of the day, I probably was a really good club level runner who had the odd stint of running for England, which was great. And I think, yeah, at the time, you don't know where your running's going to go. And so you kept thinking, oh, maybe I can make the next step up. Maybe I can, make it to a big games. Maybe I could run for GB. Because at Loughborough, we were training with people like Paula Radcliffe. Jack Buckler was there, who's now obviously head of British Athletics. But for me at the time was a super fantastic 5K runner. He'd won the European champs. So yeah, you're surrounded by quality. And so yeah, it just does help you to believe that, yeah, anything is possible. Yeah. And then I got into cycling after I managed to snap my ACL in a steeplechase event, which was unfortunate. But the flip side was it was great. In rehabbing, I got into cycling. And then, I was young-ish. Well, I probably wasn't actually. I was early 30s. But I was single. And so I had time on my hands and I trained really hard on the bike. And next thing you know, I was racing around on a bike at the kind of, they're called Prem calendar races at the highest level you can race in the UK. And doing the nationals, lining up against people like Mark Cavendish. And then racing over in Belgium and doing things like the RAS, which is this amateur pro Irish bike race over 8 days. So yeah, really just great breadth of experience. And I think the cycling in many ways was fantastic. I got to meet a whole nother community of people who competed at sport at a high level. And like I was just saying earlier, really, I think the racing in Belgium was part of the seeds of my thoughts about, what we could do to create something like Night at the 10,000 meter PBs.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought consciously about the lessons that you took from your time in running as you were, you were exploring how good you were as an athlete and, building a new community around you? Did you ever consider what that did to you as a person and how, when you went into business and you mentioned your time in agencies and kind of how that shaped you or influenced who you were?
I think running was was always a real help for me in business, because not directly in the business I did, but more it just gave me confidence in myself. And I don't think you need to be a good runner to have that, but it's almost it gave me my own world and my own sphere of confidence where, I was fully entrenched. I had a good community of people, and I had, you had that kind of peer approval for what you do from outside of my work. And I think if I didn't have that, it's very easy for work to be the thing that you try and cling to where you get your approval. And so I think it was very useful to me, and it was a really powerful tool in that whatever was happening with work, whether I was able to, keep growing the little business and sell into new clients, I always had the fallback position of, here's my running, here's my group, here's all that validation of good stuff that, is outside of work. So I think, confidence was probably the biggest thing, and you can take confidence, for me, was standing up into, a room of execs and giving a presentation on, why to HR they should be, buying into your services. I think it really helped give you that little aura of, you've got something else in your life with, that is a positive force. And I think that's probably the main thing, I think, in work that was one of the key drivers, was always having that as a bit like your buoyancy aid, really.
And why do you think leaders these days, why is health, fitness, do you, I mean, you're there, right, involved at the cutting edge of it. Why do you think health and fitness is so much more important these days?
I think it just cuts to the very nub of who we are. I think it's taken a long time to get to this point, but, our mental well-being and our physical well-being, beyond those two things, there is nothing else. Everything starts. So, if you're in a position of leadership at work, and you're leading people, they need to be fundamentally happy people, which, money does not buy happiness. Promotion doesn't buy happiness, but their well-being, that's always got to be your base camp of anything you go from. I think, for too long, leaders and the culture of work approached approach people in a different way. And I think it just makes sense from a 360-degree perspective, really, whether you're coming at it slightly cynically as a business that's trying to maximize everything you can from your employees, to actually, companies that look genuinely at their staff as part of a family, and they're looking at kind of how well healthy they are, like we said, physically and mentally. I just think they're the fundamentals to individuals' lives, but also to how they work within a company and how they then bounce off each other within that company to kind of give dynamism to a company going forward.
Who inspires you in leadership, Ben?
That's a good question, and I don't have a ready answer for you. I'll come back to you on that.
Okay. In the world of running, I mean, I can flip it around the other way. When, you've mentioned a few athletes over the course of this conversation that are, immense legends in the world of running. Is there anybody that sticks out as somebody that has taught you a lesson, who has inspired you in the world of running to be a better runner or just be a better human?
I think lots and lots of the people within the club community, you go to any running race in the UK and any non-commercial running race, and essentially the people making it happen are people who've been in the sport for 50 years plus. You'll see, track races, you'll see timekeepers of a really high level. So for people who don't know, track races are graded in terms of their quality. And if you're looking to qualifying times to go to the Olympics or the World Championships, the officials there have to be of the highest grade. And often you're looking at octogenarians, and these guys have been in the sport for 50 plus years, and they've been the bedrock of our sport. And it's been based on giving up their time. They probably, a lot of them were runners, competitors, sprinters, jumpers, throwers back in the day. And what they have invested over the years is the only real thing. It's been the kind of the golden thread that has allowed sport, athletics, to continue. So I think, that's what Night of the 10,000 meter PBs. Originally, part of my plan was always to celebrate the fundamental people who have allowed the sport to flourish for years. So I was looking at doing grand fanfares for all our race officials. I was going to hire bugaliers and trumpeters to kind of make a grand entrance for them, for the crowd. And obviously, being the people they are, they're just all so modest, and they didn't want any of that. They just said, just please give us a cup of tea every couple of hours. But we definitely don't want bugles and, but that, all I feel is things like Night of the 10,000, I think it's almost like, the passing of the torch. And I like to think I'm doing my bit. And I think, people who volunteer at park runs, the coaches that give up their time within the sport, to everyone in between, most clubs have got someone who drives a minibus. And I love everything about our club system that doesn't exist in many other countries in the same way. For good or bad, people who often complain about the club system, they want more from it. But from a system of just purely based on goodwill and people volunteering their time, I think it's phenomenal. And I think it's that inspires me. And I think there's an amateur, ye olde amateur kind of naivety about the way the sport operates, but it works. And it's I think it's something to be celebrated, which is part of what we try and do with Night of the 10,000 is celebrate the sport, not just the athletes running very, very fast times, but celebrating everything that comes together in this kind of real subtle mesh, this community support kind of ecosystem that allows everything to flourish.
And there's something about that with celebration in the Night of 10,000 and in business as well, isn't there? Where celebrating success, celebrating individuals, creating that environment that allows people to feel positive about what they're doing. And you mentioned this earlier in the conversation, it can have a huge effect on performance, can't it? And that ability for people to tap into that energy, whether it's in running or in business, and raise their game to another level.
Absolutely. And I think when you feel part of something, genuinely part of something, and there is a community and everyone is kind of working towards the same goal, I think everyone raises their game because you don't feel it's an individual task. You feel it's something that you're collectively working towards. And I think that carries its own momentum. And I think especially if the cause is something you believe in, then everything's different. You're no longer painting by numbers. You've got the added infusion of emotion. So I think input, anything where there's cohesion, where it's a group and it's a group that builds over time. So from an athletics point of view, we're talking about communities that have built over time and have a shared goal, which is kind of how the event. And I think for companies, it's keeping people together long enough that they start to have a shared story. I think there's real value in that. And there's genuine kind of real forward momentum via that kind of collective responsibility.
How have you dealt with the challenges that you've had in life? You mentioned when you were, got that injury and you had to kind of reassess, evaluate where you were, what you were doing. When you reflect on the difficult times through your career, how did you handle those? How did you deal with those? And what was it that allowed you to move forward?
Yeah, everyone has their own challenges. I think in a sporting context, I think, snapping my my ACL was an issue. Because it was a dual thing. Obviously, when I was actually personal training and coaching, which required me to be physically very active, as well as the fact I was competing. So when I did snap my ACL, it was a tough pill to swallow because I couldn't run for my own pleasure anymore, and I couldn't compete. And equally, my business then was suddenly like, right, okay, how do I pivot on this in terms of able to still keep my business going. It was quite a young business at that point, and so I couldn't physically deliver it. Yeah, I don't know if I dealt with it well. We found a solutions. I got myself slowly fixed, and then I got onto cycling, and I think I needed that physical output, and I found it in cycling, which was really important to my kind of headspace. And then from a business point of view, we looked at hiring people in to essentially replace me, which in many ways you could argue is what helped the business grow, because it was essentially limited by me doing most of the work in the early days. And then essentially we started to see the scale up of business by employing coaches beyond myself. I think as in most walks of life, really, you rely on your friends, you rely on your community, and everyone was very supportive. To kind of help push me along. It's never easy. Setbacks are, and I think accepting the fact that they're not easy. I think sometimes it's kind of pushed upon you that setbacks are always, gilted kind of gold opportunities. And they might be 2, 3, 5 years down the line, but at the time, they suck. So I think, in retrospect, would I have done things differently? I'm not sure, really. I think I was very lucky in that the people I had, the friends I had, and the opportunities I had to try other sports and work with people to keep the business going. So I think friendship and community were real key drivers in helping me kind of keep going.
You mentioned there about accepting a setback or seeing it as a setback, because I think that's a really good point. Sometimes we, in our over positive attitudes to certain things, can try and sort of gloss over those moments, can't we? But actually, sometimes it is healthy just to go, no, this is a blow. This is something I need to properly consider and change direction.
No, absolutely. Because I think so, because it allows you then to accept the emotion of what you feel, which, is unhappiness, is frustration, is, a bit of grief. And I think, there is some sort of kind of dogma now that, no setback is a setback. And I think for me, it was helpful to acknowledge it as a setback and acknowledge why I don't feel particularly happy. It kind of gives you a bit more ownership of, why you feel what you feel. And then, hopefully for most people, the good times then can start to reappear more quickly.
Is there a run, when you think back over your career experience, is there a run that sticks out as something special that you could share? A particular, it doesn't have to be anything competitive, just a moment when you were running that has a story or a significance attached to it that you can remember?
I think the one for me was 2016 up in one of Europe's largest urban parks called Sutton Park in Birmingham. And I was no longer competitively running, although I was running around Sutton Park. So that is Sutton Park is the venue for the national 12-stage road relay championships. And amazingly, we had we had such a great group of guys who, just like we were talking about earlier, a community that had a shared belief. For 5-6 years, we've been working towards being a strong enough team of 12, which is very hard competitively to have the depth of 12 runners to compete against the biggest clubs in the land. And we won it in 2016. And I just thought it was quite ironic there. We were leaping around and there was just unadulterated smiles. And I think that was probably my running highlight of my lifetime. And yet I wasn't actually running and I wasn't competing. So I was team managing the guys and I was friends, real close friends to a lot of them. And it was just so nice that moment could be shared with 12 of us up there, plus myself. And then there was old coaches who came to watch the event. And so, people 20, 30 years older than me, all sharing it together. And I think, it just made me laugh because when I was young and I was running and competitive, it was all through the blinkers of my own performance. And then, I just thought it was quite nice in many ways that like the crowning glory, the moment I thought was the sweetest, was something that actually didn't involve me competing at all.
I think there's something really powerful in that. And have you ever considered your style? If I asked, one of those 12, tell me about Ben, how does he work? What would they say?
Yeah, I don't know. You might not want to hear it. I think I don't know. I often get described as a benevolent dictator. So in terms of team management, but communication. Lots and lots of communication and getting more people to communicate about what we're all up to. And it's very easy for it to come from one person a bit too much, I think. And so trying to share out and get people who buy into it to communicate equally with you. But lots of chat, trying to do things differently, trying to have as much fun along the way and make people kind of all part of it. Yeah, we've got a fantastic club at Highgate Harriers now, and we're in rude health. We've actually just come back from this year's National 12 stage where we broke the course record and we were English champions, and we got pipped to actually winning the race overall for the UK Championships by a fantastic squad from Scotland led by Olympian Mr. Butchart. From an athletics and a club perspective, that's why I love this event called the 12 stage so much, because it does so much to bring more people with you. Normal club events, you're either scored either first 4 across the line or first 6. And the 12 stage, which back in the 20s and 30s used to be the London to Brighton relay, sponsored by News of the World. It was one of the biggest kind of running events in the UK. And then it's morphed into this because of traffic. You couldn't hold it in the same format. So they held it in a single venue. And I just love it. We had 2 teams there. So we had 24 men. We also had, I think we had 2 women's teams. So it just extends the reach of kind of hope and dreaming to a deeper group of people, which, I think you could transfer that into the workspace. The more people who have a reason to be invested, and in many ways that's Night of the 10,000s too. We used to put it onto the spectators. If you want to have a different event, if you want to have something to celebrate, you need to be part of that solution. And I think that travels really well. The more people you have who are invested, who it means something to, the more you're going to get. Yeah. So like I said, the 12 stage is fantastic for that.
Fantastic. And at this point in time, I know Night of the 10,000 is in focus. It's in vision for you. What are you doing across the next few weeks? How do you prepare to make this event even bigger than last year's?
Well, I think communication is key. We got a great title sponsor in On Running who have linked our event up with On Track nights that they're doing. So these are 5 global events, of which Night of the 10,000 is one. There's also an event in LA and Paris and Vienna and Melbourne. And so being part of a collective of bigger events means that we're part of a bigger family. There's more conversation about the event. We've also got investment from On to tell people in the UK to come and watch the event. It's completely for free. So that's really helped. The fact the event's been going now, we had for a few years, and last year's winning times were, quicker than, the most recent Olympic gold medals were won in. I think that really helps in terms of a reach elite athletes around the world. they're aware of the event. They want to come to it now. So just by us keeping knocking on the door each year and improving our performances has been a great way to kind of attract people from, more continents, a wider reach, which has been great. And then, we're doing more to hopefully attract more spectators. We've got loads more entertainment. We've got loads more kind of circus fun, more visual things that you can come along to now and just be amazed at. You don't have to be a 100% athletics, hardcore kind of aficionado to enjoy. I think that's always part of it. We've upped our TV production, so it'll be on the BBC again, and working with a really good TV production team who have really elevated how we present the sport, and that's really important. How we present the energy from the event to show how it can come across on the TV. So, trying to do as much as possible to kind of bring more people in to create more energy and show what energy we already have.
Amazing. And as I say, we'll put the links to the event and videos in the show notes so people can check that out as well. A couple of quick questions to finish, Ben. Running aside, can you name a business tool, an app, something that you couldn't do without that helps you in business?
I'm going to say good old-fashioned email, because it's a individual email. So we're just starting out we got our advertising industry 5K. We've got our property industry 5K is all coming out. And I know there are tools where you can do mass mailings and it's very simple. And obviously they exist. But I spend a lot of time doing individual emails to individual people in individual companies because having bespoke communication with people, I think, is really important. So I am I'm very old school in that way. But writing emails to people personally to link up with them in business, and it's the same way what we do with our running clubs, Night of the 10,000. Keeping it personal. So I totally get that. And business aside, is there a favorite bit of running kit or some running accessory that you can't do without? Well, again, I'm pretty old school, but I meant to say that, I suppose, because I am way beyond 50 now. Everyone runs around with it. Even my wife has got her GPS watch, her Garmin, and I refuse to engage, and I still run around with my Casio. I think £7.99 from Argos. And so, yes, my piece of tech is essentially just knowing how long I've been running for. Brilliant. I love that. And the final question, Ben, is there any advice that you give to anybody listening to this in a business role, a leadership role, considering getting more active and specifically taking up running? And you are free to mention LGN WellBeing as well. Of course, I would absolutely celebrate and welcome anyone who has interest in LGN WellBeing corporate running clubs. But I think, whether you use us or competitors, I think the evidence is clear. I mean, there's loads and loads of peer-reviewed research in terms of physical activity and mental well-being on the plus, and productivity, and people happily going to bat for their company. And I think the more that employers look at the physicality and the vitality and the health wealth, if you like, of their employees, the better they're going to get in terms of relationships and the outputs they're going to get for their company. Ben, let's pause there. Thank you so much for your time. Good luck with this year's Night of the 10,000 meter PBs. I'm sure it's going to be immense. All the details in the show notes, and best of luck with everything with LGN WellBeing and all the other stuff that you're up to as well. It's been great to chat. Thank you so much, and all the very best. Thanks again to Ben Pochee for his time on Run the Business this week. Ben is so humble with the role that he plays in putting on Night of the 10,000 meter PBs, but he does so much to make it happen, and that should be celebrated. Lots of people in life have ideas, but it takes someone who's willing to take action, to risk failure, to navigate problems, to create and share a vision, to make anything happen. And that's what he's done. And that should be celebrated, because I know so many people are grateful to him as well for how it's allowed them to raise their performance to another level, a level they might not even have thought was possible. And that's what great leaders do. They find ways to connect a group of people together with a shared purpose and take that performance to another level. It's a lot easier said than done.
but taking a community and an energy that comes from bringing a group of people together and focusing on that goal and making things happen and going above and beyond what you think is possible is such a powerful message for me that comes from that story. The 2023 event is on Saturday, May 20th at Parliament Hill Athletics Track on Highgate Road in London. Please attend if you can. It looks like it's going to be a fantastic night. If you've enjoyed Run the Business, the podcast, then please follow, share, and comment wherever you can. Let your business colleagues know. Let your running friends know. Our download figures are going up, thanks to you, but I'd love to see even more people getting involved with the show if that's possible. So if you can use a bit of your network, a bit of your energy to help spread the word further, that would be fantastic. Thank you. And also thanks to Anna Harding and Chris Kelly for their production skills in making this podcast possible. It wouldn't be possible without them. I'm Anthony Gay, and until next time, keep running and keep chasing your goals.